Hello, everybody, and welcome. I want to first thank Annie Crowder and Northbridge Academy for having me here. And if you are here for executive function skill building with your middle schooler, you are in the right place. Just for the sake of introduction, for those of you who I did not meet at Back to School Night, my name is Christine Leppones, and I am an executive function coach here in Marin County. I have been working with students in the county and actually around the country for probably about the past 8 years in various capacities. I've been a teaching assistant. I have worked as a teacher in juvenile hall. I've worked as a private tutor and for a private tutoring company out of Chicago who actually trained me in executive function skill building. And then about 3 years ago, I started my own practice, and I work with students and I help them figure out how to get everything done that they need to get done in the course of a day, both in school and out of school, and how they can start feeling a little bit better about everything that they do have to get done and start putting systems and routines in place for getting those things done. I also work with parents, and I kind of help guide parents as to how much support they should give their student. A lot of times if there's a student struggling in the home, there's quite a bit of tension. Parents want to try to help, and sometimes they don't always know the best way to help to achieve the results that they want. So I kind of come in and I am the person who tries to take away some of the tension. Anyway, I am so pleased to be here tonight, and I have really enjoyed getting to know your children over the past week and a half. They are excited and sharing and vulnerable, and just really, I have a lot of fun with them. So I so appreciate you all having me here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with the presentation. As I said before, our goal is to give you all some tips and strategies on how to help your student build their executive function skills in the home and how you can best support them. So I always like to start off with a little bit of brain development. I think it's really important for everybody to know that the brain develops from the back to the front. Our prefrontal cortex is where our executive skills are housed. That part of the brain does not finish developing until our mid-20s. If you have learning differences or have executive function deficits, sometimes it's not until your 30s. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that is just the reality. So the skills associated with our executive functions are things like decision-making, mapping out steps to how to finish a project, understanding where you are in the process of completing that project, working with others, understanding that there are other people's viewpoints, and being flexible enough to incorporate those people's viewpoints into what it is that you're doing, emotional regulation. So all of the things that help us to get things done and get things done successfully are housed in our prefrontal cortex. And then we have the amygdala, which we see right here. We are born with a fully formed amygdala. It is our survival mechanism within our brain. It is our fight, flight, freeze area of our brain. So a lot of times parents wonder why, when they ask their child about homework or missing homework or a test grade, why they get one of these three responses, right? They're either fighting with you, or they're running away from you, or they're just staring at you blankly. So you have to understand that when you're asking your child about something like homework, where maybe they don't feel so good about it, that is inducing a stress response, which puts them into fight, flight, or freeze. So our goal is to move them out of the amygdala and into the prefrontal cortex, where they can start applying logic, hopefully. And really, the best way to do that is through modeling, which we'll talk about in a minute. So these are the units. On top of obviously giving you some tips on how to help support your child, I also want to just go over quickly the curriculum that we are working on in our classes every week. So there's lots of different definitions for executive function, like what they are, and you could look it up and find, some people say there's 3, some people say there's 10. For the sake of this class, I'm starting off with kind of the basics: planning, organization, time management, right? All of those things. And I want to make sure that we set everybody's expectations that at the end of the 16 weeks, your child is not going to be a perfect planner. They may still be disorganized. They may may still be forgetting things, whatever that may be, whatever their biggest issue. may be within executive function. It could be all of these things. We are not going to solve for all of those things in 16 weeks. It is a very slow process. I work with students usually for a year, sometimes 2 years, before they're even sometimes successful at managing their time on their own. But the key here is that we are going to teach some overarching skills. Every single one of these units has a self-assessment exercise, and it allows the students to kind of look at themselves and say, well, am I good at planning? What does that mean, planning? What does that mean, organization? And give them some time to reflect on, yeah, it doesn't feel so good when I can't find my homework because it's crowded in the mess on my desk. And then we set goals, right? If we just want to change one thing in our day that will help us to hand our homework in on time, or will remind us that we have homework. How do we do that? And then how do we put the plan in place to actually achieve that goal? And what kind of support do we need? And that's where parents come in. You all are an important piece. I meet with your child once for 45 minutes every week. And then you have them for a lot of the time, and their teachers have them for a lot of the time. So it's really important that parents, I will give you lots of language that you can use to help support them at home. So this is what the pre-assessment, one of them looks like. You can see it's really asking the student to identify areas of weakness, and then they score themselves. And I always approach this that it doesn't matter what your score is. Maybe you get a lower score at planning, but then you're really good at organization, or maybe you're really good with your working memory, but you're not so great with your time management. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And the whole point is we are coming from a non-judgmental place, and let's try to learn from one another. So I really do love the collaborative nature of the classes, because it allows some people who are super good and use a planner to kind of showcase the fact that they use a planner, or maybe they just use a piece of paper to write things down, and that's amazing too. And maybe one of the other students will be like, oh, well, I know Evan uses a piece of paper to write things down. Maybe I'll do that. And it's not a parent telling them, it's them making that choice on their own. I do like to, when we're talking about supporting our students, like helping them so they can help themselves, it's really important for us to make sure that we have some reminders about where their brain is at in their development. So middle school students typically have 10 to 12 minutes of attention span. That's generous. We all know that's generous. If they're very interested in something, it might be 10 to 12 minutes. If they're not interested, it could be like 2 to 4 minutes. So it's really important when we're asking our child to do something that we remember, how long can they pay attention to actually doing this task before I maybe have to step in and give them a reminder. Teens learn best through interaction and activity. The more movement you can infuse in their day, the better. They don't have the movement of changing classes or going to and from school. So the more you can mimic that in their day, the better. Middle schoolers retain 5 to 7 bits of information at a time. Once again, this is a neurotypical middle schooler. I know a lot of the students I work with can't hold more than 1 to 2 pieces of information in their brain. However, if you ask them to talk about a skin from Fortnite and all of the powers that that skin has, they can remember 25 things. It's really quite extraordinary. And so I always try to shine a light on those things, like, hey, your brain works differently, but look at all these amazing things you can do with your brain. So it's about building up their confidence and not making them feel like their learning differences are something that is, that's always going to be a burden to them. Adolescents misinterpret emotions and instructions up to 40% of the time. It's really important to note that your child has a story that they tell themselves in their brain, and that a lot of times keeps them from achieving success or taking a step forward. They may think because they haven't handed in their math homework for the past month, like, oh, I can't hop on the Zoom because my math teacher hates me. And that misinterpretation of the emotion, like their teacher doesn't hate them. No teacher hates their student. So that misinterpretation will cause them to make a different decision. So it's up to us to apply the logic and be like, okay, I understand why you feel that way, but let's take a look. Like if your teacher hates you, then they wouldn't talk to you. But when you get on the Zoom, they talk to you and they answer your questions. So what we want to be doing is offer scaffolding, right? We need to offer support, but it certainly is a very fine line between the scaffolding that we're going to offer and the support that we're going to offer and doing things for our kid. And sometimes we actually have to do things for our child to show them how it gets done. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. Before we get into tools and strategies for how to support and add scaffolding to our child's world, I think the most important thing that I can tell you is make sure that when you're going to be modeling or you're going to be doing anything for your child, that you make sure you are emotionally regulated. If you are going to be asking your child not to have an emotional response to something, you yourself need to be emotionally regulated. So I used the phrase before, getting out of our amygdala and into our prefrontal cortex is the goal. So if we're asking our child to respond to something, or they're responding to something and they are responding with fight, flight, freeze, all of our logic and reason and punishments and rewards are going to fall on deaf ears, because all they hear is, I'm under attack, so I'm not listening, I have shut down. So by changing our language and moving away from that punishment, reward, shaming, blaming, directive language kind of situation, by moving into more of some positive language, we can kind of help our children regulate themselves by not being dysregulated ourselves. When we are creating new rules, habits, routines, it is imperative that we get our kids buy-in. I wish I had $1 for every parent that I talk to where they're like, yeah, I bought them a planner, but now they don't use it. Did you ask your student what kind of planner they wanted or get their buy-in on that? No, I just bought the one that the school recommended, which is, you know, no fault of the parents, but it is important to know that I could count on like all my fingers and toes how many times I've had a student, and probably all of your fingers and toes, how many times I have a student where I'm like, did you use the planner that the school gave you? And they're like, no, I didn't like it because of X, or I didn't like it because of Y. It was too small. There weren't enough lines to write and the lines weren't big enough. And that is a barrier to entry for them. They're not going to use it if they don't help decide. And so collaboration, like, hey, I was thinking about this kind of planner. What do you think? And they're like, I don't really like that. Or they might say, I don't want to use a planner. And like, okay, well, if you were going to use one, like, let's take a look at what we would do. Meet kids where they are. This is really important to go back to that when we were kind of level setting with where kids' brain development is. You know, if your child can only hold 3 or 4 pieces of information in their brain, and you're giving them a get ready routine, like get up and get ready, and you've got 6 steps in there, and there's no reminder no reminders in between those 6 steps, you're going to run into some problems. And my guess is that there's probably everybody in the audience here probably remembers a time where they put in place a routine and then it wasn't followed and then they just gave up without recognizing that maybe there needs to be a few more steps in there with some parent scaffolding. Make it visual, cued memory, meaning you might need to put reminders up, sticky notes, something to jog your child's memory. Asking them to recall something, just free recall, is not always helpful, and it's not always realistic. Modeling consistency. If you yourself have a routine for remembering something, saying it out loud and telling your child, like, I do this with my kids all the time. They know, I have to stick sticky notes everywhere, and they'll say, hey, by the way, I need to bring in a snack to school tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm not going to remember that. So what do we need to do? And I try not to say, I'm not going to remember, but that's my own natural way of saying that, like, I probably won't remember. So what do we need to do to help mom remember? And they're like, all right, we got to get a sticky note. Or my older son knows, oh, right, I'll send you a text. Like, if they just say it to me, it's in one ear and out the other because I'm doing something else and I'm not paying attention. And they think I've got it. So you've got to remember that for your kids as well. And also just talk about it. Like, oh, hey, you said you wanted this particular thing from the grocery store. I'm going to write it on my list, which I keep in my phone in the notes section. Okay, let me add that. Or, hey, I know it's really important that I get up at this certain time, so I'm going to make sure I get to bed at a reasonable hour. Like, just talking through your own routine is really helpful for your kids. So then you can reflect back on that when it's time for them for their routine. And you're not pushing your routine on them. Remember, that would not be collaborative if you're pushing your own routine on them. You're trying to figure out what's going to work for them. This to me is one of the most important slides. Failure is part of the plan, right? Like that, in my experience and with my students, when one of my students fails or does something wrong, it is the biggest aha learning moment for them. And they're like, oh, and I call that an emotional hook. Like, I've got an emotional hook now and I can grab it during a really calm time. I'm like, hey, remember last week when you realized that you hadn't handed in the rough draft of your English essay? Remember, like, you kind of became a little bit dysregulated. They're like, oh yeah, it was awful. Okay, so remember that? And they remember that. How can we make sure that doesn't happen again next time, right? What obstacles might we encounter during the week? talking about that, like, hey, mom's really busy this night. Like, what happens if I forget to remind you? Like, how are we going to work through that? Having a list of resources next to the desk. If you know your kid, tends to forget their Zoom login. I know that's on in Canvas, but maybe they don't have their login for Canvas. Having a sheet with all of that information is really, really helpful. Or if they are having technical difficulties, I know that there's usually a backup. Northbridge has a backup for whoever the teacher is. And I think sometimes it's Kelly in the office. So does your child have Kelly's information if they need to call her? So making sure that they actually have the resources so that they might be able to solve the issue themselves. And that comes, like, that could be an obstacle that they could encounter, right? Paying attention to triggers and transitions, paying attention to when your kid becomes emotionally unregulated. Is it subject related? Is it assignment related? Whatever it may be, paying attention to that and making sure that you're kind of following the patterns and then revisiting the plan. Like, hey, remember last week when you finished the homework, but you forgot to hit submit? Like, what can we do to I think we might need a little extra step in our plan for our homework time to make sure that that doesn't happen again. What do you think we should do to remind you to hit submit? Oh, right. You think we should add another line in your planner that says, do math homework, assignment 5, and then underneath you write, hit submit. And then that way they get to cross off both pieces. There's lots of different options, but asking your child what they think and maybe giving them some ideas. Using common language, the stop, think, act. Once again, that's getting us out of our amygdala and into our prefrontal cortex, because what usually happens when a plan goes awry and we hit failure, we go like this. And then we stop and we're like, oh, sorry. I myself just became emotionally unregulated. Sorry, buddy. Like, let's take a look at what happened with the plan. Instead, when we feel ourselves going into that kind of failure part, we've planned for it. We're like, remember we said this might happen? We might lose the Zoom link. So what's our backup plan? And then you're forcing your kid to kind of use their planning brain. Like, oh, right, we did put this plan in place. Some of the language that you can use, instead of like, when the plan goes awry, some of the language we can use, instead of saying, we were supposed to do this and you were supposed to do that, which is very blaming language, we can say things like, hey, what I saw happening was X, or what I hear you saying is this, or what I saw was you became a little bit upset when you realized that you didn't have the Zoom link. So, and once again, this is done not in the heat of the failure. This is done once we are past that point and everybody is working in their prefrontal cortexes again, so that we can move forward with planning. Right, so this happens sometimes, right? The hit submit button. I forgot to hit the submit button. This quote from Leslie Joselle, who I adore. She is an academic and ADHD coach out of New York. And she has been doing this for 20 something years. But the thing that I like about this, and I hinted at this earlier, was the last part. The more closely you can mimic these factors at your home, the more successful your child will be. Meaning, when they're not in school, like at school, they have schedules and transitions and visual cues and teachers and accountability and socialization. Like, the more you can mimic that in your home by offering transitions, maybe when they go from one class to another, you have them actually pick up their backpack and they're going to go move to a different room. If you have that luxury of having more room than more space. Or maybe during lunch, you set up a Zoom meeting with one of their friends so they have some socialization, like trying to get that back in, or having some kind of visual cue to transition them from one class to another, or maybe some kind of visual cue to remind them that it's homework time, like whatever that may be. They're missing all of that, and we forget that. Even the little thing where they're walking out of the class and teacher's like, don't forget about this. Like, the teachers don't have that opportunity anymore. So sometimes as parents, we have to provide that. Yeah, keeping it organized. Okay, so when I say self-smart system, like, what makes sense to your kid? You actually may, this right here, a friend of mine did this for her high schooler, okay? Her high schooler did not put this together because he was completely overwhelmed. He had too many missing assignments and he could not figure out how to get himself out of this. So as a parent, and this is a parent of a high schooler, like, our kids a lot of times don't know how to do this, but if we model this for them, the next time they get into a situation where they're overwhelmed, they know, you know what? Oh, I remember the sticky notes. So in this particular case, he wanted to know all of his grades, which are in pink. Some students don't want to know grades, right? So once again, what makes sense for your child? If grades are a trigger for your kid, then don't put the grades up there, right? Because, to me, grading, I know Northbridge does not use grading in the same way that a traditional school does. So that is a bonus for your children. But if you notice, pink are the grades, blue is the subjects, and then yellow are all of his missing assignments. What this has done is it's made it completely visual. And he can choose which assignments he does when. And then he pulls he loves to pull the sticky notes off. That's and crumple them up. So once again, this is giving him a visual routine. When it says attach it to something they already do, that's something super important. So if you know your child, you want them to start homework at a particular time, and you know every day at 4 o'clock they come and get a snack, maybe you put the piece of paper and the pen for them to write their homework time down, or to write their list of homework assignments. Maybe you put that in the refrigerator underneath their snack, or in the pantry under their snack, right? So all of a sudden, and once again, this is parents having to provide some scaffolding. You can't just say to your kid, remember, you're gonna write down the assignment. They may not be able to do that. So you may have to give them a little bit of a reminder. And that visual cue of the piece of paper with the pen, with the snack, priceless, right? The kid's like, oh, this is a reminder. And it's not you saying, remember, you have to do this. So make it fun. So I don't know if I added this or not to my thing, but these study carols right here, if you have a child who is in their room, locked in their room, and you're not really sure what is going on, rooms can be really distracting. The quiet can be really distracting. And there's a lot of fun stuff in your room, right? Like there's things hanging on the wall, there's stuff on the floor, there's lots of distractions. So a study carol brought into the kitchen, where you can sit next to your sibling and work side by side. They may, push back on that, like, Mom, I want to work in my room, but let's just try it and see what happens. Because sometimes sitting next to somebody, that physical presence kind of helps keep us on track, especially if we tend to wander. I know I've seen actually a lot of your kids, they're in their rooms and they have these beautiful windows with gorgeous, like just nature is outside. And they're like, oh, look, there's a bird. And meanwhile, the Zoom is going on and they're off going this way. So sometimes maybe the study carol, and also the carol, they can decorate it and make it their own. Make it fun. Talk about it. What do you think would work? Do you like the idea of the study carol? Okay. Also keep in mind, our idea of ready or done is very different. In some cases, we've had like 30, 40, 50 plus years to figure out what ready looks like. And I'm sure every single person who's watching this could say like, yeah, I said, go get ready for soccer. And he came down and he didn't have his shoes on. Like, where are your shoes? And they're like, I thought I was ready. So making sure that any kind of visual reminder like this is everything that your child needs to go in their backpack. And all of a sudden now you're not saying, do you have your lunch? Do you have your phone? Do you have your charger? Do you have this? Like, obviously you can make this whatever you want it to be. Also, something like cleaning up your bedroom or chores, that's an overwhelming thing. And it's too much. Like, they don't know how to break that up into steps. So this is breaking it up into organizational steps. Like step 1, get all the crap off the floor. Like there's a lot of crap on the floor. And my guess is don't put it in the closet, but they would probably wind up putting it on the bed as they're cleaning, but try to put it away. Then step 2, we got a lot of clothes on that chair in the corner. Okay. So then your child all of a sudden knows like, this is a stepped process. Then we're going to clean up the desk. And then finally the bed. Okay. So giving them this opportunity that they realize that it's in steps, because your kid, if you just say, clean your room, and they just clean stuff off the floor and you come in and you're like, well, what have you done? You haven't even started. And the kid's like, I did. I cleaned the floor. Like, I didn't know there were other steps. That was all I could do. I love the packing the suitcase metaphor. If you were going to tell your kid to pack a suitcase for the weekend, like you wouldn't just say pack a suitcase. You'd say like, well, what things do we have to account for? Like, what's the weather going to be like? How long are we going to go for? So asking these prompting questions is super helpful when we're asking them to do something. When you're getting ready, what are you going to need? Right? And this is all part of during the planning process. This is not in the heat of like, go upstairs and get ready for soccer. Like this is in like the planning phase. I love this. This is just something that during one of my professional developments I saw, and this is, I think for probably a younger child, but who am I to judge? There's like elves and stuff. So pretty, for some kids they're into that. This actually allows the child some control on how they do things, right? So you see there's screen time, free time, there's math, science, there's lots of different things that they can choose. how their day is going to go. And then you can see there's an order, and they can pick and choose which order things are going to go in. That gives your child quite a bit of control. And you can also help them kind of prioritize, like, well, I know that science is due tomorrow, and math isn't due till Friday. So maybe I should make science number one. That's the first thing that I should do. So there's all you have to do is go on the internet. There are so many creative options. Go through it with your kid. I mean, don't go spending, this took an enormous amount of time. I don't think you need to go this crazy, but there's certainly lots of downloadables. Working memory, okay? Our working memory is what allows us to take information that's back in our file cabinet, like way back here where all of our knowledge is stored, and bring it forward and hold it in our brain while we do something else, right? So like cooking, following the instructions, a recipe when we cook, like we have to remember the math, we have to remember where the ingredients are, we have to remember how to combine it, we've got to read it. So there's lots of different things moving around there. Keeping in mind that a neurotypical brain can hold 4 to 5 elements at one time. Once again, we talked about this in the beginning. If there's an EF deficit, sometimes it's 1 to 2. So we need to keep that in mind when we create doable routines, right? Like we may have to have more reminders in the routine than we thought. Do one thing at a time. I mean, you can't solve for like the organizational issue and the time management issue like all at the same time. Like pick the thing that's the biggest tension point. I like to use visual reminders. Let me see if I have it here. For some kids, like for my own kids, I print out memes a lot. They kind of get old after a while, but I love memes. I'm going to stop my screen share for a second so that you can all see how amazing 11 by 11 sticky notes are. Like this is saved for something special that we really need to remember. I don't just hand these out for anyone. Like first of all, they're expensive. Second of all, like it's got to be something special. If you start using these every day, they're going to become like regular sticky notes and they're not going to be as effective. So you may have to switch things up. Like, and you as a parent, I understand you have to be creative and that can be tough. We don't have a lot of energy sometimes at the end of the day, and we just really don't feel like doing anything, but we do have to kind of stop and think about like, how am I going to get my kid to get this done? Talking it out. For a lot of kids, talking out how they're going to do this, and this actually is great for like English assignments. When your kid doesn't know what to do and they're kind of stuck, talking it out is one of the best things to do. Okay, so you're stuck on this English assignment. You're not sure what to write. Like, well, what do you think? And then they start talking. Record your child talking. And then all of a sudden, when they go to listen to it, all of a sudden they have like part of the essay done. They just have to have somebody that can either use voice to text or, if your child has a lot of trouble typing, you can type for them. I type for a lot of my students. It helps to lessen the frustration, but it's their work and it's and it helps them to focus on what it is that they want to get out and say if they don't have to worry about the stress of typing. If it's fun, it's memorable. Leslie Joselle, who I talked about before, she has so many great ideas about what's fun. She does a hide the homework, and she'll put a homework assignment in each room for the kids. And you'd be surprised how old some of these kids are that she does this with. She's got another thing where she does math in chalk out on, like if your child has to do math facts, going out onto the curb with chalk. I just think it's brilliant. And if you've never checked out her website, I have it at the end in the resources. She's got tons of downloadables, tons and tons of things to kind of help inspire a little bit and maybe shake things up a little bit in the routine and to help inspire the working memory. Distractions. We can't not talk about distractions, right? Like it's really important to be realistic. How long, and talk to your child about this, how long before I'm distracted? Sometimes if it's with a subject they don't love, it could be 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes it could be 10 minutes. So just be realistic and have your kid kind of pay attention to that. There's another website, Cognitive Connections, and this clock right here, they have a whole system for like get ready, like get all the stuff I need, start, and then stop, like finish up whatever it is that I'm doing. And it kind of helps kids to see the passage of time when you have an analog clock. I just have a simple one that I got off of Amazon. They say it should be glass. I don't think this is glass. This is plastic. And then I just use dry erase marker. And it really does help. If you do not have an analog clock and you have a kid who's struggling with time management, an analog clock is brilliant. And every single executive function coach I know, including myself, like they actually demand it. I'm a little bit more flexible than that, but I really do think that it is a key. And then using a timer, the reason why I say start at 4:07, just because it's different. This is another Leslie Josel trick. Instead of starting at 4 o'clock, you say to your kid, oh, you're going to start homework at 4, but instead you're like, hey, let's start at 4:07. All of a sudden they have to remember 4:07 is different than 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is just 4 o'clock, but 4:07, like that's kind of strange and kind of funny. If your child is a tab opener, sometimes you might have to go for some of the blocking apps to try to help them. Really is a new, it's not new, but it's an app for routines. If you're trying to get your child off of a device, it may not be perfect, but I've seen it work really well, sometimes with younger students, where it actually allows you to create, for people who create workflows in their business, it's almost, you create a workflow for your kid on their morning routine or wherever they get stuck, maybe the homework routine, like, okay, 4 o'clock, we're gonna have a snack, 4:15, we're gonna do this, 4:30, we're gonna do math. And then they actually have to check off when, and it has a timer and you check off for each section. And so the kids get points for when they fulfill each thing. So it almost becomes a game. Once again, like if you're trying to move away from the screens, maybe not the best thing, but if you're looking for something new and to try to help your kid with their time management or just getting out the door on time or whatever it may be, give it a trial. It's called Brilly. We can't talk about distractions without talking about procrastination. Oh my goodness. I tell all of my students, my name's Christine and I am a disorganized procrastinator. I love to procrastinate. And so my students think that that's hilarious. But it's true. I think it's why I excel at doing what I do, because it does not come naturally to me. And so I am constantly having to tweak my systems. Usually when they're procrastinating, your kid is saying like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. Jeff Copper, who I've got his podcast or radio show on my resources. I love this. 75% of procrastination is rooted in ambiguity. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's being asked of me. So if you find your kid kind of staring off into space and they're like, oh, it's English, I don't know what to do. Like, well, what's one thing that we can do? And if they don't know, you may have to open up the assignment with them and just say, do you understand what's being asked of you? And they're like, I have no idea. Okay, well then we've got to sit down and talk about that, right? And then once they understand, then you can ask them, what's one thing you can do to get started? Same thing if they're working in their room trying to do chores, like what's one thing you can do? Well, I can pick up all the dirty clothes off the floor. Great start. Usually once they get going, they're okay. Chunking it, we've talked a lot about this in class. When something is overwhelming or we don't know where to start, or we just don't want to start, like we understand the assignment, we just don't want to do it. We can break it down by time, like especially like math. I can't remember who it was. One of the students said, like, I do this with my math problems. I say, like, if I have 20 math problems and they get assigned on Monday and they're due Wednesday, like I do half of them on Monday and then I do the other half on Tuesday and then I'm ready to hand them in. So that's by task, right? I'm breaking them out. Like, let's just do one problem. Like if your kid's at the point where they're so resistant to math homework, you may have to say like, let's just do one or let's just do two and see how that goes, or have them time it. Do you think you could do, let's try for 5 minutes. Could you do it for 5 minutes? Most kids are like, all right, I could do it for 5 minutes. If your kid says, no, I can't do it for 5 minutes, let's try 2 minutes and see how far you get. And then keep setting the timer. And then they'll see how long. And before you know it, they're kind of in a rhythm. They're like, okay, I can keep going. Pay attention to common themes. This is the same thing, similar to triggers. There could be a certain class, a certain teacher, a certain type of assignment where your kid just becomes completely unraveled. And you may have to step in with a little bit more help. And also having a time to reflect and say, hey, remember this happened last time when the teacher gave you a rubric and they told you with the presentation that there were 5 things you were going to be graded on and you didn't understand how the rubric works. So you got frustrated and you just stopped doing the presentation. I didn't do any of the slides because there was a section on sources, which I didn't understand. And this, remember that? Like we just talked it out. Why don't we talk that out and see how that works? And once again, picking a calm time to come up with a plan I can't emphasize that enough. Just some thoughts. This is a visual organizer. You can find them on the web for free. You can download them. This is helpful because it kind of tells your student, like, these are all of the things that I have to do, like supporting evidence, 3 important facts. Like, it shows them that they're not just having to do a nonfiction essay. Like, it's not just 5 paragraphs or 6 paragraphs or whatever. It's all of this. What's even more helpful is this. This, if it's a long-term assignment, cutting that up, and excuse my DIY abilities are so rudimentary. So, but it doesn't matter. Like, it gets the point across. Like, it's going to take me at least a day to pick an article. Then I actually have to read it. And while I'm reading it, I need to figure out 3 important facts or statistics. For a lot of kids, that's really hard. How do I pick out the main point? How do I pick out the most important things? And it may take a couple days to do that. They may need you to read it to them and kind of prompt them. Then there's a check-in, supporting detail. But what you're seeing here is this shows them that it's not just one assignment that they can wait until the last minute. Like, this shows that we're spreading it out over the course of 3 weeks. Because a lot of times when the teacher says, this is due in 3 weeks, they're like, cool, I don't have to do it for 3 weeks, right? But what it really means is you've got to spread it out over the 3 weeks, or else it's too much work. And in their mind, they don't know that because they cannot see themselves traveling through space and time. They don't understand how that works. I love this one too. So these are actually sticky notes right here. And they just cut them into places. You need them to be super sticky notes, or you can use this restickable glue stick. I had no idea this was a thing until about 3 or 4 months ago when I was watching a professional development video. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. You can turn any piece of paper into a sticky note. Brilliant. So here, obviously the mom or dad had to make the calendar. Like, your kid don't expect your kid to do the calendar. You can also print calendars off of Google pretty easily. But here, what this is allowing for is the student has the ability to kind of move each of these things. So they're very fluid. So if on Friday, they don't complete that section, which is green, I don't know what that says, they can move it to Saturday. If on Friday they don't, then they move it to Saturday. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I already have 5 things that I'm supposed to do on Saturday. And now I haven't done that for Friday and I got to move it over. Like, holy cow, and they all of a sudden feel like there's a lot to do, and it helps them to visualize everything that they have to do. Once again, like, be the bumper on your kid's bowling lane, which means provide scaffolding. It is a fine line between enablement and actually like independence. So we want to slowly, like, sometimes we may actually have to like full on like type something for them because they are so emotionally unregulated. They just can't do it. So we have to walk them past that, and maybe we have to type it for them and be like, okay, I'll type it. You tell me what you want to say. And then all of a sudden they feel a little bit better, and they're like, okay. And they're like, okay, so we've got like the first paragraph done. Now we also have to do a diorama. So how are we going to do that? And you may have to provide a little bit of help for them. Just common things to remember. Modeling. You are the best way for your child to learn executive function skills. If you yourself are deficient, help walk them through the process by which you're trying to change something or make something better. Making the time. I tell this to parents all the time. Me spending 1 hour with your child every week is just simply not enough. It can give them some ways that they can view themselves and maybe shine some light on some areas where they know they need help. But it takes time, and it takes a lot of practice over and over, and constantly tweaking our system. And be empathetic, right? We did not grow up in a time with the technology that our kids have access to, with this addictive technology, and we wonder why they're addicted to gaming. It's because it's 100% constructed that way. And we also have to be empathetic because look at what we're doing right now and what we're asking our kids to do. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I think sometimes we think things are hard. And so we get frustrated, and then we take it out on our kid and you're like, why can't you just do it? And I wish or why won't you do it? I have parents who are like, why won't they just do it? Why won't they just do this? It's not that they won't, they can't. They need help. So these are the resources. Obviously you have access to this. You can take a look. Attitudemag.com. If you've not attended their free webinars, they have free webinars like every week. I attend them all the time, and they're fantastic. I love Jeff Copper. He is an ADHD coach and he calls himself an attention coach. really interesting. Leslie Giselle is kind of like a mentor to me. Seth Perler also does what I do in Boulder. And I love him because he has a student section, a parent section, and a teacher section. And then Sarah Ward of Cognitive Connections really takes the brain science to a whole other level. If you geek out on this stuff, I could get lost in her website so easily and just stay there forever because she's amazing. If you ever have a chance to do any kind of parent ed with her, I highly recommend it. I learn so much whenever I do any kind of training with her. And that is it. So I thank you so much for having me. And I hope that everybody was able to take away a little something that they can implement even just starting right now. And what I'm emphasizing with your students is just try one small thing, something new. And then I'm asking them to report back next week. Like, how did that work? Did you try something new? And sometimes they're like, no, I didn't. Okay, well, if you want to try something new, how would you remember that? So this is kind of and remember, the language needs to be collaborative, not blaming, and let's kind of move away from the directive language where we say, you need to do this, you need to do that, or go get ready for soccer, go upstairs, put on your shorts, get your shin guards, get your cleats, don't forget your water bottle. Instead, having the conversation ahead of time of what does it look like to be ready for soccer, and also having that conversation where you're asking your kid to explain each step and the movement associated with each of those steps. Like, okay, because they're in the kitchen and you're asking them to go upstairs, right? And this is a Sarah Ward thing right here. I give credit where credit is due, and Sarah Ward is amazing. And she says, if you're asking them, 90% of the planning does not take place, or it takes place in a separate room than where you're asking your kid to actually go, right? So you could be in the kitchen, and the example she uses is go upstairs and get ready for soccer. Your child on the way up the stairs gets into their room because you've just said, go get ready for soccer. And all of a sudden they're like, you come upstairs and they're playing on their keyboard. And you're like, what are you doing? I just said, go get ready for soccer. The more visual and verbal steps you can add to that, like, okay, so tell me what does that mean? Get ready for soccer. Well, I have to go upstairs. I have to get my shin guards, which are under my bed. And then I have to get the socks, which are in the drawer, and I have to put on my shorts. And then I'm going to come back down and then I'll fill up my water bottle. Well, all of a sudden that's breaking that up into steps, and they have become visual for me. And now all of a sudden I remember. So instead of me just saying to you, go get ready, or me saying, do this, do this, do this, you're asking your kid to flex their planning brain and see themselves moving through space and time. So that is a super simple one, where the next time we go to give directive language, we actually maybe ask a more open-ended, vaguer question, like, well, what do you need to do? Well, what's your priority tonight? And then it forces our kids to actually move into that prefrontal cortex versus us telling them what to do, where they don't have to use anything. They just do what we tell them to do. Anyway, I thank everybody so much. I am available. You all have my email address. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I look forward to seeing you on our next Parent Ed presentation. Thank you so much.